Alright everyone, today I'm on a photography mission. I haven't seen her in the past 6 months, but now she's back in the sky, the Milky Way Galactic Center. And I think tonight we have some chance of seeing her. So it's gonna be exciting. Let's go. Certain conditions need to be met when you're shooting for the Milky Way. A clear night sky, low light pollution, and little to no moonlight. So before I go out for a Milky Way shoot, I'll check a few apps before I head out. For the weather, I will check our local observatory from windy.com and Clear Outside. So generally when these three apps agree with each other, I'll go out. But then from time to time, I'll develop some trust issues because they get it wrong and it's going to be blocked out. But what can we do, right? So the second one is for the light pollution. You can check a dark sky finder, which I'll link in the description, which one I use. And additionally, for clear outside, it does provide a Bortle scale for the pinned location, which could serve as a reference. And for the moonlight, typically around a week within the new moon is acceptable. Best practice when shooting for the Milky Way is to plan your locations in advance and visit on site when there's still some light, because it's very difficult to maneuver your way through the dark and to find proper compositions when it's your first time seeing the area and there's no light. And in addition, if you have to go around a lot, opening your torchlights and headlights might affect other photographers in the area, and it might also affect your eyesight because the bright light will affect how you see in the dark. You can also treat it as a risk assessment because at least in the light you will see the cliffs, edges, or falls that you might need to be aware of, and you might not be able to see those in the dark, and it's better to prevent any injuries or accidents. So for today's shoot, I chose the High Island Reservoir here in Hong Kong, which is a dark area. Although I didn't particularly plan specific compositions when I went here before, at least I'm familiar with the terrain and I already have an idea of the composition that I want today. It's a little bit too dark to take any decent B-roll, and I do want to maximize my shooting time for the Milky Way and the night sky. So I will leave the tips, shooting techniques, and settings till later when there's a bit more light around sunrise time. So make sure to stick till the end of the video. And for now, let's watch the night sky. Yep, the most annoying thing just happened. The sky is completely covered in clouds. We're not gonna be able to shoot her today. So how about we just shoot this vlog another day? Welcome to another day, specifically the day after, and I'm now in a different location, which is in the southeastern coast of Hong Kong. A lot closer to the city because I was still feeling a bit tired from yesterday's shoot, but the conditions today are a lot more promising. So hopefully we get to see the Milky Way, and let's just watch the night sky for now. That was such an enjoyable shoot. I think I'm quite happy with the shots that I came up with, and I did promise you tips. So if you find these useful, please do consider to like and subscribe to my channel so that it can spread to more people and help other photographers. So for the basic settings, the general idea is to expose as much light as possible. So this would mean that you will need a wide aperture. Rule of thumb is around f2.8 or wider, and a high ISO like 1600 or above. And in terms of your shutter speed, you want to expose as long as possible and without star trailing. So this would mean that you'll need a sturdy tripod so that you'll avoid any camera movements. In terms of focusing, you should definitely focus to the brightest star so that you'll make sure the background and all the stars are crisp. So I mentioned star trailing. What is this actually? So I did mention that we want to avoid any form of camera movement. So we need a sturdy tripod and then fix into the ground. But do remember that the Earth actually rotates. So if you fix your camera and expose it long enough, the stars will eventually change in positions during that long exposure. So how do we combat this? There's this thing called the 500 rule, which is to take 500 and divide it with your focal length, equivalent to a full frame camera. and this will yield in your maximum allowable shutter speed without star trailing. So this would mean that you might have to get a wide angle lens. So for myself, I use a 16mm in getting the Milky Way photos. Because we're using high ISO in our single exposure, it will introduce a lot of noise. And then because of the 500 rule, we are limited with our maximum shutter speed before it starts to star trail. So how do we actually combat these constraints? There are different techniques in which you can apply to take your Milky Way or night sky photos. So the first one is the stacked exposure, and there's also the tracked exposure. For tracked exposures, I don't really use it because I don't have a tracker, which is a mount where you can put your camera on top, and then the mount will mimic the Earth's rotation. So this will allow for longer shutter speeds, and hence you can use a lower ISO. For the stacked exposure, which is what I will mainly use, is you take multiple single exposure images, like 5 to 20 exposures, and then use a program like Sequator, and the program will take the median noise value of these exposures, resulting in a much cleaner image. But this can get a bit technical, so I won't go into the details of how you can do that. So do let me know in the comments if you want a tutorial for these programs, and maybe I can come up with something later on. So if you told me a couple of years ago that I could shoot the Milky Way in Hong Kong, I would have probably just laughed at you because of the insane light pollution around. But it is possible and quite exciting to chase around, and it requires a lot of determination because you sacrifice some sleep, overdose on coffee, and go to dark places. So try to avoid the landscape photographer's worst mistake. You want to know what I'm talking about? Check out his video. I'll see you there. Thanks for watching.